So, hey, anybody out there in the Twitch community, good to see you. Also, those of you in the small lot room. Yeah, Jagman, that's the downside to that. I don't stream over there very often, but I do stream on Twitch for the $500 challenge, which we are starting this month again. It's been a hot second since we've done it, so I thought it would be fun to do again. As a refresher for those of you in the small lots room or for anyone out there on Twitch, if you don't know, the $500 challenge is basically where I take an account with $500 of capital and I don't put that all into one trade. I split it apart between multiple trade ideas. That way, we can not only show people with smaller amounts of capital that you can trade and what risk tolerance means for you, risk versus reward, right? Setting that up properly. Because, in my opinion, if you can do it in small accounts, you can easily size it up into larger accounts. But it's also helped to teach people, maybe of a younger generation, or for people still trying to pay off student loans and things like that, that you don't need a Warren Buffett size account in order to trade. We can do it with just $500. And in the past, I haven't won necessarily every month, but I've never lost a full $500 of capital. So knock on wood, right? That will be the case this time. And to date, we are net ahead on the $500 challenge, overall profitable. So let's look to see if we can't do that again. A little bit about SPX, and then we'll dive into some of these trade ideas I was looking at. For those of you who did the 15-minute trade and were able to catch the move, well done. It was a great one to be in. I'm a little sad that Tasty was having the server issues that they were this morning because it was a perfect setup to jump into it. So let's zoom back out a little bit. So our close the prior session, right back on Friday before the holiday weekend, was 64.83. We easily were well below that, so that didn't cause any issues on not making it a valid trade day. We jumped in here on the 15-minute bar. Our trigger was to go long, so we went long. And then pretty quickly got to that 20-point target, right? Didn't have our capital risk out there for very long. Locked that in. If you traded futures, well done. It was a nice quick win for this morning for your account. If you did this setup on options on SPX, then you still may have your bonus trade out there for you. It was a 6,400 pin that you would have created for today. And so right now you're in the money of what that potential butterfly would be. Now, as a reminder, right, for those of you who like to profit recycle and want that guaranteed bonus profit, if you don't want to let it wait for cash settlement, then you can always look to sell to open the other side of this butterfly. Let me just actually do this instead. Swap the strikes. There we go. Now, of course, for myself, it's going to show a negative cash buying power effect because I was not able to catch this trade in time. Like I said, Tasty had some server issues. So I wasn't able to execute the trade. And then it started to kind of run away from me. And I don't chase after it moves 5 points for my entry. I just doesn't make for the best risk versus reward if I do that. So I didn't jump in, but if you are in, you'll notice over here the cash buying power effect will be a capital positive move for the account. And that's because as long as it's the same expiration and you have the same strikes and you literally do the opposite of the butterfly that you created and bought to open, quote unquote, and you go over to the other side. So, for example, today it would have been on the call side that you created that with the 15-minute trade. So on the put side, you would sell to open that butterfly. Same strike, same expiration, then it will be a capital positive move for the account. And that's because you cannot lose on both sides of those butterflies. For those of you that have that smaller account size under 25,000, we'll see if they ever change the rules around pattern day trading. I don't know. I feel like every year they keep saying that there's going to be a change, and then I keep looking for it. It never happens. But if they do end up changing the rules, all for it. If they don't, though, and we are still stuck trading with this limitation in smaller accounts, then this is a great way to go about locking in that guaranteed bonus profit without having to wait for cash settlement. Now, sometimes that means you could give up some profit. For example, if you were to take the credit here at 85 cents and then it pins exactly at 6,400, right? You probably missed out on some money. But we've seen time and again, even last week, where we were inside the money like this. The last wick of the bar wicks us back out. And so at that point, you might be pretty happy with the 85 cents, knowing that you locked it in guaranteed. So kind of up to you guys. Do what you think is best for your account. But for SPX, that is one action you can take if you took that with the 15-minute morning setup. So well done. For those of you who missed it, if you're like me and you're also dealing with server issues on Tasty, don't worry, right? We always have tomorrow. No need for FOMO with this strategy to get it done. If we come back over here to SPX, I wouldn't mind an end of day pin if we could get one set up. But I think 6,400 might be where it's at, unfortunately. So for those of us who didn't take the 15-minute setup on SPX at the start of the day when we got the trigger and locked in that nice profit forming that butterfly, might be a bit more expensive. Don't know if it's necessarily worth the risk versus reward to kind of put it out there at this time. If we do start to run up, then 64.15, where that 10 period simple is on the hourly chart. The bullish divergent bar target from today was 64.12.01. That doesn't seem necessarily like a bad target to the upside. If we were to look at a trade in that range right now, a broken wing butterfly with that 64.15 pin is about $1.50. And for those of you who don't know, I know it's been a while since we've done an end of day pin over in the small lots room, only because a lot of times our 15-minute trade ends up being right where we're looking for it to be. So, there's no need to redouble up on our risk or anything like that. But if you don't have a trade on like I don't, then I usually like to go with broken wing butterflies. And the reason why is because if we do get that move into our range, into our pin, great. It's a very nice profit, right? It's currently $1.30 of risk, $8.70 of profit potential. Excellent risk versus reward. However, if it overshoots, like can sometimes happen into the close, especially when you get like an algo move, and let's say we're at 64.25 by the end of the day, well, on a standard butterfly, right, you're not paying that much difference, $1.20 versus $1.30. So on a standard butterfly, you may not get the profit, especially if it goes completely in the money. You won't win on a standard butterfly. It has to be between your wings, ideally at your sold to open pin strike. If you do a broken wing butterfly where the debit is greater than the credit spread and it goes completely in the money, then there is still a positive profit potential, and that's because the debit spread is wider than the credit spread. So the debit spread wins on the 10 points. The credit spread side of the butterfly loses on the 5 points. 10 minus 5 means there's still a $5 value on this butterfly. 5 minus $1.30, $1.40 is a $3.60, $3.70 profit. So still a pretty good risk versus reward in that sense. So like I said, if you think it's going to get above 6,400 and continue to run up into the close, that would probably be the trade idea I would lean towards. I'm not 100% confident it's going to break above 6,400. So I will probably sit on my hands today and just kind of watch what happens. And I'm doing that too because I do think that there is some good things to look at over here for overnight and swing trade ideas, especially with this pullback. I think could make a decent buy. Hi there. So let's go back to SPX. So I was a little cautious of this dip, right? Certainly when it was near the lows of the day, I was like, okay, maybe we'll give it a second, kind of watch to see how it holds. But we dropped down to the 30, dipped down, got close to the ATR trailing stop. That's that dotted blue line. It held. We bounced back up. And now we're back to holding the 30. Nice pullback. Usually the 30 is not a bad place to consider buying in. We do have a little bit of bearish sentiment down here on the lower indicators to be mindful about. But the Bollinger Bands, the fact they aren't budging, looks pretty good. The only slight hesitation is on the weekly chart, because I know momentum was getting a bit high, and that's what I wanted to see if we are getting today. So we are getting our first red bar on the weekly chart. Now, as I was telling the small lots room last week, not too concerned a lot of the times when the indexes get up to that top range of exhaustion. Is it on pause? I don't think so. TL, you might need to restart the room. I know Lorna restarted it for everybody, but she said it's good to go. So I trust the bot on anything recording wise. So hopefully, right? In the meantime, over here though on SPX, so we have our first red bar. And like I said, usually on an individual symbol, that might concern me a bit more, that we finally have reached some sort of bullish exhaustion to where the price could stall or pull back. But the indexes, in particular with SPX2, it's not uncommon to get this kind of move where it goes up to the top, pulls back a little, back up to the top, pulls back a little. And in the meantime, the underlying the price and the trend to just keep going to the upside. So because of that, I'm not too concerned, right? It doesn't mean I necessarily want to load everything up today in case we continue to stair step down tomorrow. It is also a holiday week that we want to be mindful about. But I do love the fact that on the weekly chart, not only did we have this recent crossover on the ATR trailing stop, turning that from a bearish signal back into a bullish one, but we do also have the 10-period simple still, at least right now, attempting to hold as support. So I do like that possibility. Also, if you did jump into that trade that we just talked about and you're able to day trade, you could lock in a quick win here. And for those of you who have limitations and want to profit recycle to guarantee yourself a win if you did this end of day pin, you can add an additional contract to the credit spread. But as of right now, that won't get you to break even. So I would just sit tight and see if that gets closer to your pin. And then if it does, if you want to try and lock it in that way, you can. Just the downside of doing that is it will start to act like a standard butterfly, meaning you don't want it to go completely in the money. So just a friendly shout out there if anyone did take that setup. It made for a nice quick scalp to the upside. But like I said, sitting on my hands on that because I think my capital would be of better use, at least right now, on maybe some of these potential swing trades. So some of these were actually trades that we were looking at last Friday in the small lots room that I think are setting up nicely. And then some of these I found today. So let's go over them. The first one's IBIT. So the reason why I think this one looks interesting is we still have the weekly bullish divergent bar that's valid. We've come down. We're still holding the 100 here. We still have a decent true low set up on the daily chart. And we know with the weekly, this has a really good follow through rate. It has not failed on a bullish divergent bar. Now, of course, the chart's pretty new, right? It's like an infant. It's still trying to gather all the data to get that kind of historical preference of what's really the top of the axis, right? Does this thing usually like to chop, or does it usually like to have a trend move and that sort of stuff? But at least to date, every single time this is printed a bullish divergent bar, it has seemed some sort of higher high follow through within the next 3 bars. And the nice thing about the current bullish divergent bar is we're not jumping in right at the high of that bar looking for a quick follow through and scalp. It is pulled back to where we have a better entry, can get in for a cheaper cost basis and a better target to the upside. And that would be 66.76. Now, of course, this is a Bitcoin ETF, so be mindful of that as Bitcoin, moves in the crypto market. So too will this. But I do very much like that target there. So whenever we looked at this last week, I think we were looking at a 3-point spread. So the 64.67 for September 12th, 10 days out, is a 76-cent cost basis, 224 profit potential. Not a bad risk versus reward. I'm thinking though, because I might do this in the $500 challenge account, I might decrease that to the 65.67 strikes. That would bring the cost basis down to 41 cents. So it's only about 10%, a little less than that actually, of the account value. If we still get a bounce up to target, which is 66.76, if I remember correctly, let's double check that now. There's the crosshair. Okay. Yeah, 66.76. So let me just set an alert so I don't forget. $66.76. A little slow. Maybe have too much stuff going. Let me close out of the main room. At simpler trading. There we go. That should help out. So 66.76 is the target, meaning if we can hit that target, which within 3 bars, right, would be, we already had last week. This week is currently printing, and then next week, which would be September 12th. So we basically have until that Friday's expiration to try and get back to or above this target. And if we do, that should put the majority of this spread in the money, and could allow for, technically from an intrinsic point of view, $1.76 of profit if it took all the way until Friday's close to reach there. So certainly not a bad risk versus reward off the 39 cents. Now, I don't know if I'd necessarily hold on that long if this had a nice pop up the next day, right? I might just consider that the win and taking it off the table. But I certainly like the capital risk for a small lot $500 challenge account. Certainly, maybe we'll still go with this at 74 cents. But let's also look at some of these other trade ideas and see what you guys think of that too. So IBIT is still on my radar. Netflix was another one we talked about last week. Now, if you guys remember, part of the reason we liked Netflix was because of the true low. Oh, this has bounced up more from when I looked at it. Well, that's good, right? If anything, that means it's showing strength today. We've had these daily true lows for a while during this consolidated range close to the bottom end of it. We have a low compression squeeze setting up. Still a little bit of a bearish signal here. I'd prefer to see that start to cancel out. And momentum still relatively flat. Not too surprising to see the red bar today given the pullbacks that a lot of things had in the market. But what I like, before we move on, actually, first thing I like is that it's holding the 100-period simple and the Bollinger Bands aren't budging. And as you can see, we had this little bit of a blip below the 100 earlier this year in April when the whole market was, falling down at that time and getting that pullback. But Netflix has done a pretty good job of maintaining its 100. So I do like that. The other thing I like about Netflix is on the weekly chart, we have this weekly true low. And it's been in this consolidated range. We are starting to get a weekly squeeze. So that might tell us maybe not to aim too far up just yet for a big move like up into 1400 or higher, right? If this is just starting to compress, it means that we could stay in more of a choppier range a bit longer, right? Allow momentum to reset a bit more and then start to get this bullish signal. But the reason why I really like this is mainly because of that true low. The true lows in the past have usually been a pretty good spot on Netflix to buy in. The last time we had a true low was back in August of 2024. If you bought in there, especially with shares, right, you're pretty happy with it. Prior to that, it was in April of 2024, also really good time to buy in for that bigger move to the upside. And then prior to that, 2023, you kind of had that print here. Also a really good place to buy in. So as you can see, And then here, of course, a lot of things were printing true lows in 2022. Once the Bollinger Bands flattened out, great spot, right? If you had bought in for around 200, you're pretty happy over the last few years how that has run up in value. So I like the weekly true low. I like that it's starting to reset. May even get a weekly bullish divergent bar now. Of course, that's pretty early to guess. It's a Monday. We're not even into market close, or Monday. It's Tuesday. I have to keep telling myself that. It's Tuesday. We're not even into market close. We still have until Friday for it to print the signal. But if we can jump in now, right, on something bullish, just playing maybe towards the top higher end of this range around 1300, right, that could still help it be an overall consolidation, build up energy into a squeeze, but allow us that possibility to take the quick win, especially if we can get the immediate follow through on the daily bullish divergent bar to start working that higher high to the upside. So let me pull up Netflix over here. So I was looking at this. This would probably be a little rich for the $500 challenge account, at least until we get some more profits in it. But the 1290, 1300, 1305, I don't think would be bad for the small lots room. It is a bit far out. It's out in October. We'd have to kind of work the order to see if this could get filled or not. But I kind of like how much time's in the trade. Technically, with it being after the potential earnings announcement, that's set in date yet, I'm not sure. Tasty's saying it's October 16th. But that should hold on to its premium a little bit more, so we shouldn't have as much of an issue with theta. And of course, if we can get that directional move with it being a debit broken wing butterfly, should still work out nicely. We could also bring in the expiration, maybe go to the September monthly instead. I say that. Actually, September 26th. Let's do that. And go with something like the 1250, 1255. It's not too much of a difference in cost basis necessarily. It certainly reduces our profit potential. Still not a bad risk versus reward, though. But what I do like about this is it brings down our target. So you don't need as big of a bounce in order to get back to break even or profitable. From a technical point of view, that 1250, 1255 range would be right up to where we were back here, right where that used to be a price support level before we dropped below it, and right around where that upper second deviation Bollinger Band is as of right now. So kind of like that idea too. If you're more a premium player and want to keep it short dated, you could, of course, look at something like an unbalanced butterfly to play this bounce with the idea that it maybe keeps stair stepping up. That's actually not too bad on the credit. I just don't know if I'd want something that close to the money. When I priced this out earlier, it was around 1200 with the idea that we maintain the psychological level. And actually, I want to say the premium was about 65 cents. So it's gone down a little as we've continued to bounce, but not too much, right? It's still in that range. So a few trade ideas there to consider. I like how well that's holding up. MS is another one, though, that I think looks good and may also be good for the $500 challenge. This one, of course, has also continued to run on me a bit more, so might have been better to get in this one earlier in the day. But this one still has a valid bullish divergent bar from Friday. Beautiful bounce off of the 30. We're actually back above the 10. Of course, we have that weakness and momentum today, but everything else here is still bullish. Potential for a weekly bullish divergent bar. 9 out of 10 times we get the follow through with the higher high on this, which looks pretty good. On the weekly chart, part of the reason I liked this is there's still plenty of room on momentum. This is still a bullish signal. We have that crossover. Bollinger Bands are still a bit flat, so I would be a little mindful of that. Oh yeah, I definitely wish I got into this already. This was, I want to say, like 40 cents earlier. So that's definitely moved up in value. I wish we had the dollar strike increments to continue here. That's the only downside to this. Because I'd prefer to encompass 150 but I don't really want to go with a dollar width spread. That doesn't make sense to me in this case. And unfortunately, I would have to either just go with a wider width spread, which, arguably we could do, or drop down my strikes. And I don't mind doing it this way too much. I liked that when it was the cheaper cost basis. I saw earlier. So may take a look at that. If we don't do it for the challenge, maybe we'll just do it over in the small lots room here at Simpler Trading. JP Morgan was another one that looked good. Now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, is John still in this? I thought maybe he was in one. I could be. Oh, no, he closed that out. Okay. So I like JP Morgan because what a great bounce, right? Went right to the 10 and 30, held, bounced up. Nice squeeze, nice bullish sentiment, room to move higher. The only slight issue I have with this is 300 potentially being a price level, right? We saw it stalled there. That's when we got the pullback into support. Tried to break above it Friday, and then, of course, had the pullback today. But I like how well it's holding up. Of course, JP Morgan's another one with an excellent follow-through rate. And absolutely, Julio, we can take a look at Hood. Add that to the list. Really quickly, on the 4-hour chart, we also have a valid bullish divergent bar. Not as good of a follow-through rate as the daily. And then hourly, that squeeze technically fired. I was just seeing if there's any intraday squeezes. I do like the support it's holding. 302, 303 would make for a good target short term. So JP Morgan looks pretty interesting. Really quickly, before we go into Hood, let's take a look at Google because that was the last one on my list. And we talked about this one the other day because it's done a really good job of holding the 10. And I mentioned, I was like, when it's been making these bullish divergent bars off the 10, it hasn't necessarily been a bad place to enter. This one, maybe not as much, right? It got a little bit of that follow through with the higher high. So depending on when you jumped in, might have been good enough. Otherwise, it might have just been more of a scalp play. But otherwise, it's done a really good job maintaining the 10-period simple. Technically, all of this is still bullish. Great follow-through rate. And I feel like it's one of the few bigger names that's done a bit better of a job holding up recently. Now, the weekly chart is also getting close to the top of the axis. And unlike the indexes, I would be a little bit more mindful of that. So may want to play it a bit more for a scalp move. And then for those of you in the small lots room, Mr. John Carter is taking action on RKLB. So he just sent out an alert there. Which also, I looked at that earlier too. That looks pretty solid. Also a bullish divergent bar. Nice bullish sentiment down here. Great squeeze. True lows. So not a bad play there. And then let's take a quick look at Hood. All right. Third time's the charm. Nope. Oh, thinkorswim. You are too slow for my typing. There we go. So Hood is doing a good job of trying to remain stable, right? Keyword, I guess, is trying here. I do like that it's holding the 100, and the ATR is still valid. What I don't like is the 10 starting to cross below the 30. I don't like that the Bollinger Bands are starting to open. Don't like the weight of momentum here, and don't like the more consolidating signal. Now, our divergent bar targets, in particular the weekly one, is still definitely valid. But if it's going to start rolling over, may not be the best place to add in. So personally on this one, I want to see if it can't maintain support. And then if it can, I might consider adding a little bit more into the trade. Otherwise, I'm not jumping out of it yet because it's not technically, falling apart and our signal is still valid. but I'm not going to add in capital until I have a little bit more conviction that it's trying to hold. And with how the Bollinger Bands look, that's what makes me a little hesitant. For example, when we go back and look at Netflix, the Bollinger Bands aren't budging, right? We started to put that pressure and they stayed the course pointed up. So I want to look for symbols like that have a little bit better of stability, if that makes sense. If I'm going to put my capital out there, doesn't necessarily have to go into something that I'm already trading. It can go into a brand new trade idea, if that makes sense. So I hope that helps. But let's let me pull back up Tasty. And let me pull up Think or Swim, which is where the $500 challenge is. And let's look at jumping into, like I said, not going to do everything we just talked about. If you guys have a larger account and want to, don't let me stop you. But I think out of the ones that I am looking at right now, I like JP Morgan too, but I like MS because that target really isn't that far away for a short-term trade idea. And then I like IVIT. I still like Netflix too. I really like all of these, so I guess I have to just decide which ones to do, huh? For a $500 challenge, I think IBIT makes the most sense. From a cost perspective, it keeps it relatively inexpensive. We'll have plenty of capital to play with. It's within the time frame of a month, right? Which is typically what we look to do on this account. So let me get that set up. So that will be for, like I said, the September 12th expiration, and I'm leaning towards the 65, 67 vertical. So I'm going to prep the alert. If you guys want to front me a little, don't let me stop you. Okay. Sorry, guys, I'm just typing this out. So this is a $500 challenge trade. IBIT has a valid bull DB on the weekly chart with currently, I should say, a 10 out of 10 follow through rate and a target of 66.76. On the daily chart, it is doing a good job of staying above the 100 SMA as support. Looking for a possible bounce higher by next Friday. And always, guys, always do what you think is best for your account. Right? And keep in mind your capital risk. Only risk 100% what you're willing to lose. So let me add this really quickly. So for those of you following along with the challenge, that is today's what we're looking for. I'll fix the fill as soon as I get the fill. Gonna go right at the mid, 44 cents. Okay. I'm in the wrong account. Let's make sure I'm in the right account. Oh, it hasn't credited yet. Well, that's frustrating. It must be because of the holiday. So I put $500 of capital in this, but I can only buy stock at the moment, I guess. Well, okay. If you guys want to follow along, I'm going to do this still in the small lots room because I like the setup. And for those of you following along on Twitch, then you can still follow along. We'll wait till tomorrow for our first $500 challenge trade. And have it in at 43 cents off the mid. It's only a penny, so I'll go up to the 44. Filled at 44 cents. Let me take out the $500 challenge bit. And I'll send this alert out to the small lots room. There you guys go. So, bit disappointing. I should have double checked that. I thought it would have credited by today, but I must have been wrong. And yes, TL, I am aware. And I know he's looking for a bigger pullback. So if you don't want to take the setup, you don't have to. Doesn't mean we both can't be right on the trade idea, right? He has a longer time frame than I do. But like I said, this is, at least to date, has worked out every time with the higher high. So I'm willing to risk the $44 basically to see if it can't get back up towards this range. And even if all it does is get up to, let's say, the 10 on the weekly chart, which is just shy of 65, that could still be enough of a move for us to take the quick scalp and win on it. So yes, we'll see. We will see what happens. But I like the setup. We talked about that a little bit last week as well. But I am willing to see what happens there personally. In the meantime, let's go. What time is it? 2:45. Okay, so I probably have a little bit more time to enter one more trade with y'all before it gets past my time of day. Oh, by the way, well done if anyone did open that end of day pin. Where's that at right now? So I guess I should have jumped into it, right? Beautiful move. You're almost at a $2 profit if you took that. Now, once again, to profit recycle this, doing it the way I usually look for, bit tough. Bit tough to do that. So oh, that was okay, never mind. Yeah, we'll see what happens, Ram. It will be an interesting move. So let's see. MS I like. I think that would be pretty easy to get. But Netflix might be a bit more of a better longer term hold. I would prefer to give this a bit more time. Because if we do continue to sell off tomorrow, like I said, I don't want to get in too much. Very nice, Ram. Yeah, if you're playing the 6400 pin, it could still work there. For the end of day pins like that broken wing butterfly, I priced out. For those of you unfamiliar with the strategy, I am usually very picky about how much capital risk I put out there when I do those because I oftentimes will let mine cash settle, meaning I don't, day trade out of it or anything like that. Now, the downside is when you let it cash settle, you're at the whim of the market. Having done that strategy over the last several years, to date, Still net ahead positive even when I've let it cash settle, but that is because I am very strict about the risk tolerance. I usually don't pay more than $1.50 on a 10.5 broken wing butterfly like that, and certainly even less on a standard butterfly. That being said, if you are able to day trade or want to use one of your day trades, that you have 3 limited and an account under 25,000. So if you wanted to use one of those, don't let me stop you, right? Take the guaranteed win. The end of day pin strategy has a much better win rate day trading than it does cash settlement. The reason why cash settlement, though, is still profitable to date is because when you get those pins, right? That's like if you got the pin today, for example, that's going to be an $870 profit. Makes for a great risk versus reward. So it can easily pay for a few losers and still keep you net ahead in the account. Very good, Ram. Nicely done using that profit recycling to your advantage. So nice profit, and then you have a great bonus trade, and arguably your strikes might work for you a bit better if it pulls back but then holds above 6,400. So we'll see how that goes into the close. Back over here to Netflix. So up towards the 1250, 1255, if we did the closer strike set aiming towards September monthly, that's about $1.40 right now. If we reduce it to a 2.5 with spread, it's about half the cost, 70 cents. Certainly not too bad of a cost for a small account. Still a very nice profit potential at $1.80, of course. And then I have just returned to the Twitch world. So I took a break for a hot second, but I am starting up the $500 challenge again. And once I get a schedule for Twitch a bit more set in stone, I will certainly let y'all know. But I decided to dual broadcast today with the small lots room over at Simpler for the last hour, just to get people geared up for the challenge. So I'll be certainly on and off throughout the next month as we do the $500 challenge here on Twitch. And of course, Ram, yeah, great job using the teaching. And there's 612, so we just followed through with the hourly bullish divergent bar from this morning, right at that target. Now I'm wishing I opened that for the challenge, right? Because that would have been a good one for today if it stays here. Let's see, the time of day, I'm already starting to get past it. I guess, guys, we'll just do IBIT. I'll look at Netflix tomorrow and see if there's anything I want to do on that longer term. Maybe play around with what strikes I want to look at a bit more. Of course, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I'll keep you guys updated on the schedule here at Twitch of when I'll be on the mic. And of course, for you guys in the small lots room on every day. And yes, Jackman, all of you guys in the small lots room over at Simpler Trading, y'all always get the $500 challenge trades first. So I always post them first in there, and then I send them over to Twitch or to Twitter or anything else posting wise. And a lot of times we're on the mic together like this whenever I'm jumping into those trades, and they'll usually specifically say $500 challenge. The only reason IBIT doesn't is because, like I said, I thought the money would be settled going into today, but the holiday must have made it skip an extra day. So should be able to start technically trading it tomorrow. Otherwise, we'd be in IBIT in that account. But they'll say at the top of the alerts and caps, this is a $500 challenge trade, usually right before or right after this trade has filled. So it's right at the top, so you'll know. So that way, if you want to follow along in your own $500 challenge account separate from what we're doing in the small lots room, absolutely, you'll be able to. So yeah, I still like Netflix, still like JP Morgan. Google would probably have been a good one to jump into as well. Now, if we can get a little bit of a pullback on Google at the open, I will be, especially if it's holding the 10, right? As long as the 10's holding, I would be all over this to play it back up into 211. So let me make a note of that in my trading journal. Tomorrow morning, Google at the top. MS would still probably be a good one to look at if that has a little bit of a weaker open and holds. JP Morgan would be, and then of course I still like Netflix, longer dated. So if you guys have anything you want me to look at, I'm happy to take requests. Otherwise, I think I'm just going to sit tight on everything. Sometimes, it's not good to overtrade on a Monday because if you have that reversal Tuesday, you can usually get them for a better price. Yeah, let's take a look at that, Ram. PALL and Baba, absolutely. So this one's nice. I don't know if I've ever looked at this symbol before, but I do love that it was holding the 100. Here's a great example of where the Bollinger Bands maybe budged a little bit on this bar, but for the most part, they stayed relatively flat, even when you had a bit of that pressure. So this is a good view of what you kind of want to see if you're actually trying to jump into something and timing the lows versus, free falling and you're just trying to catch a falling knife kind of thing. Great true lows in this range, so still could be in that discount price level. The last few true lows, let's see, that was a good place to buy, especially the cherry on top. That was kind of the low of the move there before that run up. You had some more good discount buys here for either the short-term move or the bigger picture. So yeah, this doesn't seem like a bad spot. What I also like too, though, is it's showing signs of bearish exhaustion. It has a bullish signal here on the compound breakout tool, so that means we'll at least get up into this range more than likely and test resistance. If we break above that and this remains valid, then we get more into the bullish trend signal. See where the weekly's at. Weekly, that was pretty bearish for a while. The trend's finally turned bullish. You've had your first real break of the 10-period simple. Sometimes it's not uncommon when you've been in a bearish trend like this and you just start to break. If it can't hold the 10, it's not uncommon to go back and test the 100. But I would say so far so good on this maintaining support. You still have momentum pulling back some. You still have a pullback signal here. Do have that true low. So we'll see if it can maintain. I would say if it can hold 100, may not be a bad place to jump in. Arguably, the 100-period simple is at 97.71, so that would be the low. Yeah, less conservative stop, I would say, is if it breaks and closes below that. Let's pull up Baba. Yeah, I knew this had a great earnings Friday. I think we talked about this Friday specifically on Baba. So when it makes that third deviation snap, there's a good probability that the underlying price will either stay within this bar's range that broke the third deviation Bollinger Band within the next few trading days, or it will continue in that direction, in this case to the upside because it's on the upper Bollinger Band. And today we've gotten a new high. Once again, has moved outside the third deviation Bollinger Band, still has the room on momentum. The squeeze is just starting to fire, so that looks good. So good probability, once again, will stay in this range or continue to the upside. The weekly still has a valid squeeze, nice bullish sentiment, momentum building up, room to move higher. You have a little bit of price resistance around 140 to be a bit mindful of, so that might be a first good target if it can break that. Probably, right around 150, and then looking for the continuation from there. My only hesitation about trading Baba is really with a lot of the Chinese symbols. I've had it, at least in the past with me, where I'll jump into something, all the technicals look great, I get into it, and then the, government over there does something and it completely makes it like kaput. And then I also, for those of you who remember trading during Trump's first term, I guess now it's more of like a global trade war, arguably, with all the tariffs, right? If you want to call it that with the headlines. But I do remember, the first term that he was in, basically any sort of tweets that came out around China or anything else, sometimes the Chinese companies would get hit a bit harder. So, and of course, when that happens and it's kind of that catalyst, it makes it a bit tough to trade off of the technicals like I like to do. Oh, Seth, that's good to know. Didn't know that about PALL on the future side, but yeah, $50 a tick. Thanks for the warning too. Let me make a note of that as well. Not as not as cheap as our ES trades, huh? And then Ulta, absolutely. Looks like it's going to be a perfect pin today. Man, I'm kicking myself now for not jumping into the end of day pin trade. I won't jinx it, but I hope somebody out there other than Ram caught that. And absolutely, I can take a look at SPY. Ulta, ooh, that was a big move. So on earnings, bearish divergent bar before the announcement, that definitely got the lower low. We got a little bit lower today, immediately reversed. Was there some sort of catalyst here? Otherwise, that was quite a bit of buying that happened. Ulta has a good follow-through rate on bullish divergent bars, but tough for me to jump in when we're at the high of the bar. It only takes, a few pennies to get that higher high technically. Could end up making a weekly bullish divergent bar, though signs of exhaustion, so that would also make me a little cautious unless we start to adjust the axis higher, which is possible. I would be a bit mindful of that. I do like the bullish signal trying to come back in. Holding the 10 back-to-back divergent bars can be a sign of chop. Doesn't mean they can't follow through on the signal, but it could mean that, it's not much of a follow through. And then also well done for anyone who bought Ulta back here. Nice bounce, good discount. Same thing back here and here. So it looks good, Ram. A higher target, I would say, is the ATR at 563. And what a pin, guys. So if you took that end of day pin that I really should have taken myself, and you let it cash settle, you're at least according to this right now, you're 51 cents off of the 10 points. So 10 minus 51 means you cash settled for $9.49. If you paid that $1.30 that I was pricing it out at whenever we did it, you took an $8.19 profit. So a bit bummed. I thought there would be a little bit more of a magnet pull back to 6,400, but clearly the market wanted to stair step right up towards that resistance. So very nice. Yes, very nice, Ram. Well done on your profits, sir. Of course. So thank you guys so much on Twitch for joining me. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. And follow me over on Twitter at Allison_trades. If you want updates on when I'll be live on Twitch, I usually post over there before I jump in. For those of you in the small lots room, I'll be back on tomorrow morning for us to trade the 15-minute setup. So hopefully we can lock in a win that way and get a nice butterfly. And we'll take a look again. If we're not near those strikes into the end of the day, we'll try for another end of day pin and see if I can actually execute and get us that nice profit that we just saw here. But as always, my fellow Jedis, may the trade be with you, and I look forward to talking to y'all next time. Bye.